Alright, so this is the green-white Hexproof deck, otherwise known as Boggles. The deck has been around for a decent chunk of time now. I actually played it in 2015 as part of my World Championship run there. I know Reed Duke has played it at the World Championships, but since then, it kind of stagnated. The deck hasn't been doing super well until the past few months. Dan Ward won a Grand Prix with it. It's now surging in popularity, and for good reason. It's just incredibly difficult to interact with the hexproof creatures, and then you're able to just make a huge guy, sometimes with lifelink, sometimes just really large creature with various forms of evasion. And it's so low, the curve is so low that it's pretty explosive and can actually race some of the combo decks in the format as well. Mana base 20 lands, so it is a pretty land-light deck, relatively speaking. 4 of them are Horizon Canopies, which are really good because not only are we a green-white deck, we don't care that much about the life loss, and being able to cash your land in for a card can be pretty important. The other land that's worth really taking note of is the 1 Dryad Arbor, which isn't fully a land, because you can search it out with one of the 6 fetch lands in the deck. And the deck plays out in a way that there's not actually that many creatures. So there's 12 regular ones plus the Dryad Arbor. So sometimes you're forced to kind of use the Dryad Arbor as your primary creature and as a way to attack the opponent. So beyond the Dryad Arbor, we of course have the Slippery Bogle. So 4 copies of Slippery Bogle. There's a lot of 1-mana cards here, as you can see. But there's 4 Slippery Bogles and 4 Gladecover Scouts. So optimally, you want to have 1 of those in your opener, so that you have the option of playing your enchantments on a hexproof threat. Now, you don't always get that option. Sometimes there will be hands with Core Spirit Dancer or with a Dryad Arbor, and then you have to start making a judgment call whether or not to keep those. But there are 4 Core Spirit Dancer. The card is amazing in the deck if it's not killed. You can play it and then start chaining auras together, and it just becomes massive very quickly, and you don't run out of gas very often because of all the card drawing from it. So talking about the auras themselves, there's 6 Umbras, 4 Spider because reach, 4 Spider Umbra because reach is more important. Just like some of your matchups, like Affinity, having a reach creature is nice, but there's also 2 Hyena Umbras for first strike. So these Umbras provide +1/+1, but they're also really nice against sweepers. So one of the best ways to answer a hexproof creature traditionally is a Wrath of God type card, and the Umbras help you get around that. 4 copies of Rancor. So Rancor is one of the most important enchantments in the deck, being that it gives trample, and it can come back to your hand if your hexproof creature dies. So I've got a couple of 1-ofs as well. So there's a Keen Sense. This one is actually not normally played in the Boggles deck, but I've been liking it. Whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you can draw a card. So it helps you keep gas in your hand. Sometimes the deck wants that 1 more aura, and the Keen Sense, on turn 2, especially against the decks that don't have a lot of creatures, is really, really effective. The other 1-of here is a Spirit Link. So that's basically your 5th life gain effect. The other ones being Daybreak Coronet. So Daybreak Coronet is kind of your big aura payoff. So you can only cast it if you've already got one of your other auras on the creature already, but it provides the biggest bonus of any of the auras, being +3/+3, but the lifelink being the most important one, but also First Strike and Vigilance. So once you get that Coronet onto your creature, it's pretty hard for your opponent to actually win in any type of fair way. They're not going to be attacking you with creatures and beating you that way. Couple Path to Exile, that's basically the, a couple interactive spells in the main deck. Generic good removal spell. Griffspoon is a way of providing evasion. I don't often find myself returning it from the graveyard, to be honest, but the +1/+0 in life and flying is pretty good. And Ethereal Armor is another payoff card. So the more enchantments you have, the better with this one. A lot of the times it's +3/+3, +4/+4, and so on and so forth. So it's a bit more bang for your buck than some of the other 1-mana enchantments. Spirit Mantle is a way to get through creature board stalls, any type of big creatures. You're going to want this card. And then, so Leyline of Sanctity, most lists have been playing 4 recently. I actually only have 2 because it's very matchup dependent. It's great against your Jund decks, against your Storm decks, against your Scapeshift decks, but then there's plenty of other decks where it's actually just not doing anything at all. So I've kind of hedged my bets and put 2 in the main, 2 in the board, and I've been liking that. You don't need to draw 2. So whenever there's 2 in your opening hand, it's pretty bad, especially in game 1, not knowing what you're playing against. So I've been happy with this number. For the sideboard, the best sideboard card is Gladecover. It comes in a variety of matchups. Any type of deck that's trying to cast, big non-creature spells, which is a ton of the format. Any combo deck pretty much has them. And then, even something like an Engineered Explosives, this can shut off that as well. So there's X spells, there's big non-creature spells, and then you can play it and then sometimes stick an Umbra on it. And that is pretty effective as well. The additional ley lines. Then we have our anti-enchantment and artifact package. So I've been really liking Unravel the Aether. Most lists of Boggles that you'll see just have seals instead. But this one, it's able to deal with a card like Hangerback Walker, a card like Wormcoil Engine, by simply shuffling it into the opponent's deck without actually killing it, and it's instant speed. So I've been happy with it. I think it's better than a straight up disenchant. And there's also 1 seal of Primordium. 3 Stony Silence. There's a lot of artifact decks right now, whether it be Affinity or the KCI deck that won the last Grand Prix, and more. An additional path, and then some Graveyard Hate. Graveyard decks aren't that popular right now, but you will run into them from time to time, and Rest in Peace is going to be good in those matchups. So I'm happy with this deck. This is what I played at the Grand Prix last weekend, and I'm happy to also showcase it online